Good evening, Padawan distributors. Madam Isle Presidential Diamond here. Welcome to another Powercall. I have my co-host and partner in crime, Brian Burnside, on the line.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. I'm so looking forward to this adventure with John-Erik, and I look forward to all the information shared. And we had a lot of questions submitted. I'll ask one of those live on the phone with him, and look forward to it. Let's get it going.
Absolutely. Brian, before we go into the interview, why don't we kind of explain to everyone, because I know there's a lot of new people on the line here that have never heard of this call, and just basically the reason why we put it together in the first place.
Sure. Not this last conference, but the conference before that. Matt and I came out of it, and, obviously we were pumped up and, ready to hit the ground running. And we started thinking about different things that we could do to grow ourselves and to also grow our business and our team's business. And there, at the time, there wasn't a lot of guy-focused calls. There was the corporate calls and then a lot of the calls, but nothing for us guys. So we sat down and decided to start putting together a monthly call. We started our first call. I think we had like maybe 20 people on. And we've built it up over the past year. We started off trying to get as many male leaders in the business as we could, presidential diamonds and above. Over the past year, we've had some awesome calls. We've had everybody from Bubba Hatcliffe and Rusty Lackey to Nathan Dempsey, Joel Dunn, Eric Murphy, a bunch of great guys. And we've gotten to kind of hear their story and get their advice on how they run their business as a male. And basically to show that, hey, us guys can be just as successful building a business as the women. We can help our wives out, or we can even build the business as a single guy. So that's basically the background of why we do this. We've been doing it a little over a year, going on our second year now, and our calls keep getting better and better. And we've got, our last call, we had our Chief Sales Officer, Mike Patillo, on. That was a blast. And today we've got a very special guest. Our adventure has grown tremendously since conference, and I can't wait to hear what he's got to share with us today. If you want to go ahead and start off, we normally typically ask a couple questions in the beginning of the call, and then we'll let John have the floor.
Okay. Prepare the jump to light speed. Here we go. Ready? Cue it up. Without further ado, give it up for our chief. I love this title. It's like the most awesome title ever. Give it up for our Chief Adventure Officer, John-Erik Moseler, is on the line.
Woo-hoo! Hello, adventurers.
John.
Well, we're going to have a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll help a lot of people. And thank you guys so much for having me.
So glad to have you on. The first thing we wanted to do, John-Erik, is just thank you for coming on. I know today's your wife's birthday. So
happy birthday to her.
Yeah,
I should probably explain that, because now it's like, oh, that's horrible. My wife's an art teacher, and so she has a big festival. And so when I said, I just was getting back from New Orleans, and I said, hey, what do you want to do for your birthday? And we were coming up with a lot of ideas. And she said, well, the only problem is it was her long teaching day, and she's getting ready for a festival. And she said, I'm not actually going to be able to actually do anything. And why do I want to go out anyway on a Thursday night and then have to get up early to go to school? Let's instead you go down to the It Works headquarters, because I was meeting with Mark today about some awesome things in the future. We were conspiring on some new adventures. And then she said, you go down there, and then the kids start spring break, and I will meet you down there, and we will kick off our spring break and her birthday adventure. And my mom always would say that birthdays are too special to be celebrated in just one day. So in our family, we do birthday week. So yes,
nice.
While we're not celebrating her birthday tonight, her birthday kicks off an entire week celebration starting tomorrow. And so
oh, great.
Yeah, perfect.
So really, the festive time.
I'm kind of Han Solo without Princess Leia anyway. So I thought, yeah, it's either this or.
You're flying Han Solo, right?
Yes, I am. I'm flying Han Solo. Hold on.
All right, Matt, you want to start off the questions?
Yeah. I think he had to pause for a second. Are you there?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. I thought you said really what we don't know a whole lot about your background other than the awesome companies that you were involved with in the past. Could you maybe just give us a little bit of backstory where John-Erik came from before it works?
Okay, that's a long story, because I think one of the things
the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, but this is also a bigger principle, I think, specifically for the guys, because guys, I think naturally, when guys get together, they say, so what do you do? And we define things by, like, hey, what do you do? And your identity becomes, like, well, what do you do? And so I think that's harder because what you do is not a relationship question. But when girls get together, my wife and her girlfriends, they don't talk like, hey, so what do you do? They just say, hey, so where are you from? They say, hey, well, how many kids do you have? How long have you been married? By default, they're relationship questions. Guys are transactional, like, so tell me what you do because it's respect and I want to see what you do versus what I do because I just need to have a hierarchy, right? So a lot of times, like, we can actually flip that to our advantage. So if you're asking me what I do, what I would always say is you can either have people pay you for what you do or pay for who you are. And so early on in my career, I got that advice from a mentor of mine is if they pay you for what you do, then they will always try to find a cheaper option. And you become a commodity. Have people pay you for who you are as a person. And then I have clients in the past and people that I work with, which I literally get calls, hey, I want to do something together. I got a text yesterday from a pretty major, a lot of people would know this company and said, hey, I want to work on something. And I'm like, oh, so tell me about it. And they said, well, we don't even know what it is yet. We just want to work together on something. So, that's not an easy journey. This is year 22 of me doing creative work and working with technology. And so that is not always, and there has been times when I've left to go try to work on a project, to try to pitch something, and there hasn't been food in the fridge. And so that, like, to me, a lot of today was honoring, my wife who, she believed in me when I think there was times I almost stopped believing in myself. And so, it's going to be a lot of no's. There's going to be a lot of rejections. And I really just believe you win if you don't quit. And so I know sometimes I have, like, calls and stuff, and I'm like, they're like, that was great. And I was like, I don't think I actually answered any question that was given to me. So I think your question is, tell me a little bit about, like, your background. I think by default, guys want to say, well, let me tell you the projects and what I like, the commodity side. So briefly what I'll tell you is that, I think there is things that help shape who you are. So part of the interesting idea for me was that there's been a lot of times where providence set in. So I even look at my name is John-Erik because my dad wanted John and he's a Marine, and my mom wanted Eric and she's a hippie, and they've never agreed on anything. They literally will go to the polls, cancel each other out, and then have a nice lunch. And so they were arguing about my name, and the nurse just wrote down John-Erik because they'd never agreed on it. But I loved growing up in a world where you can disagree with somebody and still be madly in love with them. And so that helped shape even that, is it A or B, or is that a third alternative? And I think with the business, sometimes guys, you know what, let's just be really real about it. It is in ways tougher because it's like, well, I was just talking to some of the adventure team. We were having dinner, and I was saying, hey, so let me get your guys' opinion. And some of even the ladies who help run some of the Instagram, and they're a great part of our team, And she's like, yeah, I think it's tougher because you go up to a girl like, hey, can I rap you? Like, it could be creepy. Like, there is some natural disadvantages that I think guys have. But for me, limitation is inspiration. So I think if guys try to, when we want to say that, while I believe very, very much in equality, and I also believe very, very much in, I think today's guy needs to step it up because they're getting laughed by the girls. And so I'm always with my team like, hey, girls are crushing you right now, guys. Because I think the girls are more determined. I think, and they don't give up as easy. But girls and guys are different, right? And I thank God for that. That there's different ways. And so I think, guys, if I tried to run the business like my wife would run the business, she has a different relationship with her female friends than I would. So I have to not try to do it like her, which I would even say that even applies to if I tried to run it like, Brian, or I tried to run it like Matt. If Matt tried to be Brian and Brian tried to be Matt, what I know is that Brian would do a bad version of Matt, and Matt would do a bad version of Brian. So you have to find kind of your unique voice in that. So for me, it was great because there was always – I had to find out the creative way, because my dad would say, well, have you thought about it this way? And then my mom would say, have you thought about it this way? And so that was a really, really good, good part of that. And then – nope, I'm good. Thanks. Sorry, I was walking through this. Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit. I graduated high school, and in high school, the guidance counselor would say to me, yeah. So the guidance counselor would say, hey, do you like computers or do you like art? Because you can't do both. And that was the exact time when the world was changing, that you could do computers and you could do art. Prior to that, you couldn't. So you have to realize that at the time with computer animation specifically, while there's schools now for it, while there is online programs, schools, books, there was no possibility to do that at the time. There was maybe a 100 people on the planet that were doing some of those things. So even in the university, you had computers that were better in your garage than some of the universities had. And so it was like a revolution that was happening. And so for us, we were inventing the future every day. I love the quote that says, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And we really, I think one of the fundamental things for us is we had a healthy attitude towards failure. And so I think that's one thing that we as a society, not just guys, is we're afraid of looking stupid. And I think even sometimes that's even tougher for guys, where it's like
the pride comes into play almost.
Absolutely. So I think it's easier for a lady to say, yeah, I'll maybe show a before and after picture. But I think guys, in a way, can be more prideful about that, and they don't want to look failure. So for me, it was very, very easy to, over time, you just lost your sense of failure, because in a think tank, you failed every day, several times a day. You would be given an impossible idea that, hey, we want to play video games, but they can't be in the same room. They have to be on the different side of the country. That's impossible. There's no way to do that. Well, what if we did this and that? Well, we tried. That didn't work. And so I think that's even just an idea of a principle for everybody, even for the guys, the failure. So fast forward, ended up actually never I wouldn't say I dropped out of college. I just stopped going because I was busy making video games. Having full intent, like, done with this, I'll just go back to class. And so never finished school, actually. And school wasn't really it was really hard for me in school, because I still at that time thought I was dumb because of the way I learned. But I thought, oh, well, I'm good at this, and And so we did that, and our company really expanded, and we started in video games and with the animation part of it, and we got into a lot of the technology. Then we said, hey, that doesn't look as good because these people wanted like websites. And so then I was like, well, we did a designer. So let's just buy an ad agency. We didn't know because nobody had Photoshop at home. You work at an ad agency. And I think that was a great principle is we just didn't know that most businesses failed. And so we just went after it and eventually the business got really big. And after about 13 years, ended up woke up one morning and said, you know what, I think I'm going to sell. Because I was Peter Pan that became Captain Hook. I was meeting with accountants and lawyers all day instead of being creative. And so I sold that, and that's how a lot of times I have the Pixar connection is my team is that started a company with they're over there. I'll actually be there in 2 weeks, and we're going to have a little fun there with the team. And, so that's kind of like the really, really quick, but I also wanted to like throw in some principles there that, hey, if you want the future to be different, you're going to have to invent it. It's not going to be anybody else, that you cannot give up. And you got to start becoming immune to failure. And I think you either can have pride or the promised land, like you can't have both. So I would say to my team all the time, and for me, I take what I do extremely serious, but I don't take myself serious. And I think guys, there's a difference between confidence and arrogance. And I think sometimes guys can go to the arrogant side there.
Right.
So hopefully I answered that without being too boring or long.
Well, it wasn't boring at all. It was very interesting how you answered the question because you didn't go through a resume. Like, oh, I was in high school, then I did this, and then I did that, and then I did this, and then I did that.
I've never actually made a resume, so I don't know how they
work. That's awesome. I like the principles you put behind it because it tells us how it's kind of shaped you into the person that you are today, especially with even the references to your mom and dad. Kind of each, well, have you tried it this way? Have you tried it this way? So it got you thinking of two different thought processes, and then from that you started thinking about a third or fourth process. So it's helped you kind of creatively work through a lot of issues in building a business and in building yourself. And that's, I know, a problem that a lot of the guys have, and even a lot of the ladies have when they're trying to build their business. They try to think about, well, what am I doing wrong? How else can I build my business? I'm posting on Facebook or I'm, posting on Twitter and Instagram, but nothing's working out. You've kind of got to find your strengths and play on that, but at the same time be creative and find different ways to do it. And that kind of ties into the question I wanted to ask, which is actually one of the questions from the post that I did earlier. It had the most likes on it, so I figured I'd ask it. The question is, how do I make my ordinary life look more like an adventure? I don't get to travel or go out or do a lot of things outside of the kids' activities, meetings, and work. So how would you answer that as far as, I think I kind of know where you're going to go with it, but could you answer that question?
Yes. Hold on one second.
We should have some Jeopardy hold music right here.
Okay. All right, here's that. So sorry guys, I took my team out to dinner, and so I stepped out to walk in the parking lot, and security keeps stopping me.
Okay, we don't want to get into trouble.
If I get tased, no, like this call might turn into an adventure. This might be question to a live streaming of which, by the way, I look like many of you have seen my picture, but they said that I look suspicious. I'm in an It Works polo. I'm going to post a picture here in a second. I'm in an It Works polo with a moleskin, with an iPhone earbuds, walking in front of like the Cheesecake Factory, and I look like a Wisconsin dairy farmer. Like, I look suspicious. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Anyway, If it goes silent and you hear tasing, you just know that it's going down. So,
all right.
Anyway, that's a great question. How do you make your life? So, I actually had written down some of these notes to encourage you before I even heard that question. And so here's a couple things, and I think some of them is especially for guys. So, like, number one, I think specifically for well, let me answer the question, and I'm going to add some other parts of the adventure. Adventure does not have to be expensive. In fact, I think spending money, and I'm talking about when it comes to solving a problem. So sometimes, like I would say in a company, the laziest thing you could do is just throw money at to solve the problem instead of stopping and thinking about it. There has been times when I've gone to try to, I've had a lot of my life where I've pitched ideas and people didn't get it and people didn't believe in it. And I've had times when I've walked across the parking lot to the meeting and the melted snow was coming up through the soles of my shoes. So there has been times where it's like, hey, I don't have anything, but I have everything at the same time. I have my integrity, I have my family, and I have my imagination. And that's where I think when we think, oh, well, I can't get on a plane or I can't meet those people. I always say turn anything into an adventure. We were talking, Jeremiah and I earlier, we were in Dallas, and all our flights got canceled, and it was this big ordeal. And I'm looking around, I'm seeing most people yelling, complaining. What we did is said, hey, we didn't check out yet, did we? And he's like, no. I'm like, back to the hotel. Let's order. I'm like, let's order room service. And we turned it into like this. Hey, we're going to eat pancakes and we're going to or we could complain and argue and yell. I think that the difference between an ordeal and adventure is attitude. So adventure has, and I'll say it again, the difference between an ordeal and an adventure is attitude. So to think, I don't have this or I don't have that. Adventure is not a matter of resources. It's a matter of, to me, everything can be an adventure. And that happens just all the time. I get rejected. My plans fail constantly. I love what Mike Tyson said. He's a great philosopher, joke. But everybody has a plan. Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. And so for me, it's like, hey, we're going to go do this. Okay, they're closed. Well, now it's like I'm going to post on Facebook that I've had this horrible day and this didn't work. Or it's like, okay, that didn't work. What else are we going to do? I'm convinced that you can make the trash, taking out the trash an adventure. I'll give you an example because this speaks to even me getting it wrong sometimes. Well, not sometimes, all the time. It's more me getting it right sometimes. I'm more of a night owl. So you're more likely to get a like from me at 3 a.m. than 8 a.m. many of the times because I lived most of my life on a different time zone. I interact more in different time zones than one I live in many times. And so what had happened was I got up early to take a flight, and my wife was getting the kids ready for school, and I was watching them, and I was getting ready, and Ashley was there, and I said, is this how every morning goes? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, because what I heard a lot of times was, hey, get up. Hey, Logan, get up. Because I have an amazing, he's now 16 at the time, amazing 15-year-old, but he's still, he's a 15-year-old boy. He doesn't want to take showers and he doesn't want to wake up. So it's like, hey, get up, get up, get up. And I thought, you guys just spent 25 minutes. You guys just spent 25 minutes basically nobody's yelling at each other, but it's just is that the way? So I said, honey, is that the way we start the day every day? And she's like, yeah, that's it's tough. And I was so deeply convicted about it that I I did not go on my flight. And I was just bothered by it. And it was in that moment that I realized my kids, they have to be my first clients. And what I did is I made a playlist, and I timed out the music about how much time they got ready. And I decided that I'm going to wake up with my family because it's not about my preferences. And I love to cook, so I'm going to make breakfast. And the next morning, and I announced to them that, hey, from now on, there will be a playlist that starts. And you will know how much time you have by what song we're on. And when we leave, we leave. And that's your problem, not our problem. Because I think even with my wife, like, and I tend to, it's like, hey, let me solve my problem for the kids. It's like, no, you got to work it out. But they've never missed a day because now, instead of that tension, we dance together every morning. Now, tell me, was that an expensive adventure? It's not. The difference between my family nagging each other and being irritated, and now we dance every morning together, that's attitude, not ordeal.
And that's great.
I like that. And it kind of goes to show, like, one reference that I can talk about and speak to recently is, you know, it's not, like you said, it's not about spending money and having this big, you know, ordeal about it and like, oh, look, I'm going on a trip or a vacation with my family. I posted a simple picture of, you know, me putting my son down for his nap, and I posted it on Instagram and Facebook, and it's by far, I mean, it had hundreds of likes and I think like 20 or something shares, and it got a lot of attention. And it was something as simple as me putting my son down for a nap. And that's just part of my day-to-day life. But it's how I expressed it is what made it part of my adventure. You know, instead of just, oh, yeah, I had to put my son down for a nap, I made it something positive. I turned it into, you know, part of my adventure of my day-to-day life. Because of It Works, I'm able to do this. So I tied my adventure into it, and I tied our business opportunity into it. And it got a lot of shares and a lot of likes. So it was all in my attitude, not, you know, the opposite of that. So I didn't have to travel or do anything. It was just part of my day-to-day life. So it doesn't have to be something crazy and extravagant. It could be the simple thing. It's on how you portray that to your audience. Like, for us, adventure is a mindset. Mm-hmm. That when I feel, fortunately, I've never been bored one day of my life. But I think I feel those things coming on, and then, you know, part of it's just throwing my brain where it's like, okay, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we, like, hey, let's try to, because it's like every day, like, my goal is to live every day, like, there are no bad days. So that's why in our family we don't say, we hope you have a good day, because that to me is a defeatist and victim mentality, like, without you thinking of it. So we say we hope the day has a good you because you can control that. You can control your attitude. You can say, hey, listen, I don't like that I have to go to jury duty, but I am going to make it an adventure. You know, and I think a lot of that is when you go in the attitude, that jury duty is where you can meet your next best friend. That's where you can meet there is more, I'm more and more convinced that some of my best relationships and my best opportunities actually came from my failures where something didn't work, but I had the right attitude and mentality towards it, that I pushed through it, and that led to some of my greatest adventures. So definitely it's much more about adventure as a lifestyle, not something that we can, because we live in America where we can have maybe 2 adventures a year if we're really, really lucky. And we have to go through life, and we call it vacation, that, like, I have to, like, not enjoy life, so that I can twice a year enjoy, you know, 2%, you know, of my year. Instead of saying, no, I'm going to make every day an adventure. And adventures are in those small things and in those small moments.
Love it.
Awesome.
Love it. John-Erik, I want to be respectful of your time. It's 9:30. We can keep going if you'd like. I understand if you have to step away.
Oh, no, I'm good. I didn't even get to the big thing I was going to talk to you guys about.
Yeah.
So
okay, great.
Keep it going.
If you guys got to go, I'm cool.
No.
We're here for the long run.
No.
Actually, I have just one question that I didn't even write down, but I kind of came up with it just listening to you. And you said the difference between ordeal and adventure is attitude and mindset. So what would you say, what mindset is what percentage of success?
Like, I mean, it's everything. Like, to me, it's everything because another thing we have in our house is that, some people have, like, words that you can't say, and, like, I know, like, people have cuss jars, and, like, at different places. It's like, where you get in trouble, some words that you get in trouble in our house saying is, you're not allowed to say good news or bad news, because we feel that makes you think you're one with God. And you are trying to, in a moment, define a decade. And so I know people who got really good news, and it led to the destruction of their home because they got the bigger house, they got the, they got the raise, they stopped having a community they were around, they didn't have as many friends, they weren't plugged into their church, and it led 10 years later. Because what happens is when we say somebody was an overnight success, that was 10 years in the making. And we also say that when somebody had a failure, you have to understand it works the same way. It was the small decisions that they made over time that led to that thing. So what we want to do is we want to define the moment as success or failure. I even try to take an approach of, yes, everybody's telling me that was great and that was a big win, and I'm going to celebrate that, but I'm not going to go and put too much stock in it because what if it leads to something that, like, if I define my success by those moments, then I think that can be miserable. So what I do is like, hey, that's that moment. I'm going to celebrate how that helped people. I'm going to look at is there anything I learned from that? And I'm just going to be thankful that there was a lot of other people that were a part of my life or contributed to that. So that is an attitude, which I think that is 100% is how you look at that. So that's what I'm always trying to do is, the way you think about things become your words, which become your actions, which become your habits, which becomes your character, which becomes your destiny. So it really starts with, that's why I try to start with, if I can start to change, like the word paradigm is just a map. And I think we got handed a bad map, some of us, whether that's the education system, our parents, society. At the end of the day, we have to stop blaming them, and I think we have to redraw the map. So that's why personal development to me is so important, and why even sometimes I feel like, should I just be covering more apps and buttons and not do an episode about the way you think about it? And then that's where sometimes I get the most feedback from people. It's like, hey, thank you. You helped change the way I think. So it's absolutely everything is the way you think about your view of the world.
Great. Yeah, I mean, when we saw conference was awesome, and coming off the Blacklight Party, I'm like, what can top that? And then the first segment, I don't know if it was the very first segment, but Saturday morning, you came on, and everybody was like, whoa, I've never heard this kind of a perspective on business, on just the way, to make relationships. So,
well, first they said, who's that? First they said that, who's that dork in a bow tie? And then that happened. Let's just be honest about it.
It was such a business and life-changing moment for a lot of us because we had a much different mindset before that. Just last night, Matt and I were doing a Google Hangout for some of our guys on our team, and we were going over training, and we created a document a year ago. And in that document, we talked about, post 2 before and afters to Facebook every day. And that was our kind of social media, like make sure you get the before and afters on there. And it wasn't about the adventure. It wasn't about sharing more than just a before and after picture, an ad per se. And it was just kind of cool. I started to read it off during our training, and I was like, what am I doing? Scratch that. Share your adventure. It's helped us change our mindset into, looking at our business and how we share our business and our life and our opportunity in a different way. And it's been truly life-changing. That kind of helps me segue into my next question. In the 100 Days of Social, you've talked a lot about the main social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I wanted to know from you, I know you're definitely, into that whole realm. What do you think is the next new up-and-coming social media platform that you could foresee us being able to utilize to help share our adventure and grow our business? I know there's stuff like Meerkat that's popping up, Periscope. I know Twitter's kind of changing some of their platform and live streams and stuff like that. So is there anything out there that you could think of right now that we could start to look into and start utilizing to help grow our business?
Well, I tend to be on the bleeding edge of some of those things. Well, let me say that I do think that things like Twitter, where, now they're having, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, they add now that you can have not just a direct message, but a group direct message. Then they changed it. Then a week later that they also added where you can upload a 30-second video, where you couldn't upload video before Twitter. So I do think that we need to understand that if the future is a ship, going from, San Francisco to Tokyo, it's social media wise, it's still leaving the harbor. It takes, it took some technologies 30 years to become mainstream, and then sometimes it's taking half of that. Well, we're still only in 5-6 years with some of this stuff. I saw a similar document. It's interesting that you said, like, oh, here's this document. I saw, like, this business plan for the company. I said, well, let's go back and look at it, and it was from 8 years ago. So I refer to it as, like, oh, is this your pre-YouTube document? Like, you might as well, like, are you kidding me? Like, I joke with people, like, I live in Google years. So my day is your week when it comes to the advancement. So what I would say is, instead of saying, yeah, this is this new thing or that thing, like, we have not even optimized and maximized the potential. And in the first part, like, we're, going to day 57, we're still, if you look at everything that was covered, we're just barely halfway there. And I was talking to Mark today, and he goes, hey, I was talking to Jeremiah earlier this morning, and I ran into him, and he goes, hey, are you running out of content? And Jeremiah was like, no, we're actually, like, we're running into a problem is we are going to run, like, we cannot get everything into 100 days because, not only did we talk about those three, but we're getting into Google Plus, which I think, especially for guys, there are more men on Google Plus and things like Twitter. I think for guys who are trying to reach a younger guy, depending on, like, you have Vine, which is a 6-second video sharing. I think people don't understand with YouTube that it's not a video broadcast. It's actually a social network. And so we're going to cover things like, hey, you think about YouTube, Ron. There are whole mainstream, channels that are more popular than you look at number of YouTube videos uploaded and played, combined, has more audience than, all major networks. So I've been asked, and we're going to cover a little bit in like a microblogging like Tumblr. Snapchat went through a lot of bad PR, but they've made a lot of changes, and they're really focusing more on storytelling. And so when you're looking for a younger audience, like the moms hear that, sometimes they're like, oh, that's bad. Well, again, it accelerated. It didn't do anything bad. It accelerated and gave opportunity to some things. Like, it didn't do that. It just gave that opportunity. But now it's being used as, like, some of my favorite storytellers are telling stories every day on Snapchat in small little bursts that disappear after 24 hours. I mean, can you imagine if I did the 100-day videos as Snapchat videos, that if you did not watch it, it disappears in 24 hours? Do you think anybody would get behind? Because they would disappear forever. Like, think about that for, like, teams and advantage. So, we could talk about that, but I think the biggest thing is to say, we have barely still explored. I feel like social media is still like the surface of the ocean. Like we really barely scratched.
It's in its infancy. I mean, even the internet itself is still in its infancy.
Right. Like I think we just had 2-3 days ago the first domain name ever registered. It was only 30 years ago. Like it's still very, very much in its infancy. So I don't think I answered your question, but I think the attitude needs to be, hey,
I think you
do. Explore more. Like stop, explore and try things and be okay. Like, okay, that failed miserably. So we laugh at ourselves. Like, okay, that didn't work. Let's try, this. And we're going to cover more of that in the 100-Day Adventure. What we want to cover, I don't have the list in front of me, but I think there's 10 or 11 different social networks that we'll touch on throughout that.
Yeah, you definitely answered my question. I like what you said to kind of, don't worry about what's new or next, but kind of focus more on what are you utilizing the networks that we do have in front of us already to their fullest potential. And to me, I know a lot of people try to ask, well, which one should I use? To me, I answer whichever one you're more comfortable with, or whichever one you can put your story out. Some people are better with Twitter, and some people are better with Instagram. So finding what you're better at.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, and the thing is, and I get asked this too, like, should I get on all three? Well, for the social media adventure, I'm always going to tell you, hey, at least lock down your name on all of them. I have Twitter names for projects that I haven't sent the first tweet or follow, but I have an email associated with it, and I have it locked down to protect that property. And some people, I think, you need to use it to maybe practice to do that, but, you're going to I think sometimes what happens is it's like communication. So with my wife, I want to write her a nice note on the mirror before I leave for the day. But then what she sees is that I left my clothes on the floor. Because how I process, like she's more of, she feels love with, hey, I'm helping. I feel more in words. So do I want to give, and we tend to give people what we want, not what they need. And so that's where it's, it's like with Instagram. I've grown to love it, but at first I was like, I don't want to be like, I don't want to mess with that. And then it was like, but my 13-year-old daughter is on it. So you know what? I'm going to be the first boy that likes her photos. So I'm going to be all over it.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard a friend of mine, one of my best friends is a pastor in Arkansas, Rick Bizette. And I'm actually going to, for those of you on the call in Arkansas, I'm going to be there in not this Sunday, but next Sunday. And he says, if you're going duck hunting, you go where the ducks are. So I think you got to decide, like, hey, do I want to based upon what I like and what I'm more comfortable with, or am I going to go where the type of person that would really appreciate my story? And I think depending on who that person is or who would respond to the story, that's where I would learn it based on what they need, not what I want, what I think they want to hear.
Cool.
Great.
Perfect. All right, Matt, do you have any more questions, or do you want to let him kind of take the floor? And
yeah, I mean, John-Erik, we do have a question each, but if you're out of time, I understand that. It's been 45 minutes. We can stay in hyperdrive here.
No, I mean, if some people gotta jump off because they gotta go to bed, I would just give you the same advice I give my children sometimes, is that bedtime is a lack of vision. So, sometimes we stay up late to go on adventure. But I know you guys are also recording this, so somebody has to jump off. I think we can get that. So, and I just want to address one idea. So why don't I do that, and then you guys can ask me a couple more questions.
Sounds good.
I think you guys even said that on that page they'll still ask some questions, and I'll try to interact with that. But I'm sure you guys,
we'll help answer
great.
some of
you
those
can do
questions.
that, or we can do that.
Sure.
So, here's one of the things I wanted to, like, as I was thinking, if I had one thing that I could say, hey, I wanted to talk about this, is especially for guys, it is what I hear. One of the questions I get a lot from guys and girls, but the ladies ask the question as well. But a lot of times from I'll say from some of my closest, when it's, hey, I'm going to be vulnerable and I want to ask you a question, it is the question of how do I balance that I have my family and I have my career, and I also want to make the world a better place. Like I have a spiritual side of my life. Like I care about what God thinks, or I want to be involved in my church, or I want to I want to serve in my synagogue. I want that side, but you know what? I also need to work, but I also have family, and they're trying to balance it all. And so I get asked this question a lot. And for a while, like, I just had a really hard time answering it. And so I try to answer the question, and then what happens afterwards, I found myself answering this question one time and then stopping halfway through, and I go, you know what I said was just a bunch of crap just now, like, because I've tried it and it doesn't work. And so I don't know anybody that it has worked for, and the people that have do it work, we have some friends where it's like they seem to be very balanced, but their kids hate to live there. And I think they hate to live there. And it's just not the way. I think it's a bad map. It's a bad framework. It's a bad mindset, is that balance is a lie. The whole idea even that we've compartmentalized our life so much that we have, that even in our to-do list, so we have work and then we have home and then we have church. Or why are those three to-do lists? For if we have 10,000 years of human history, 9,800 of those was we as a family sowed and we reaped and we did things in community. And so am I the crazy one that thinks, we spend most of the time with strangers? Or because that's only 200 years where we're doing that. So the whole thing of like, I want to be a stay-at-home mom, the same with that. Like, yes, that's like everybody. Like, that's how the world should work. That you do that, like you do family together. So I think children get their first ideas of teamwork. I think they get their first ideas of teamwork by watching their family. And so it's like, if you don't see your family together and you don't see doing things together and stuff, I think that's just dangerous. So I replaced the word balance with integrate. And I said, so I started telling these guys, like, stop balancing your life and start integrating your life. So for me, what I did was say, okay, I've now, our family makes a lot of times our decisions based upon, we have a framework that, like, what helps the most people, not what's most convenient, not but can it help people? Do we get to learn something? Is it an adventure? So my currency isn't always money. It's part of that. We'll say it's not about the money, but it's not without the money in cases of even with nonprofit stuff. But it's like, hey, the money isn't bad. Love of money is bad, but it's really okay to have it. And the reason I want a lot of money is because I want to fund a lot of adventure. I remember even when I had to do the contracts and transfer money, they were like, "What are you going to do with this?" And I was like, "I don't know. I was just tired." And they're like, "Well, you got to fill out the form." So I remember, and then something even came alive to me because I wrote down the word fund adventure. Like, what are you going to do with this money? I'm going to fund adventure. Like, almost flip it. Like, none of your business. Fund adventure. And then I was like, wait a second. Like, yeah.
That's
I'm gonna fund adventure. And then so what happens is my kids, they don't hate my job because it didn't even feel like a job to anybody because they don't even know who's their real uncle and who's their fake uncle, because after we start working on stuff, it's like my Emerson, he's 5, he literally thinks Mark Pentecost is Willy Wonka. Like he's like, oh, the cheese, like he calls them, he seriously is like, there's a slide and he makes the squishies. So he calls them squishies, not chews. And he would rather have those than Starburst. Awesome. And so literally, like, you could get him to do anything for a chew. And it's his favorite thing in the world. And he's like, can I have a squishy? And I'm like, yeah, you can. He goes, you know what? I'm like, what? He goes, your friend makes those. I'm like, my friend? He goes, yeah, the one with the slide. Uncle Mark. Like, so you know what? My kids don't hate my job because like, oh, you're going to go there? Can you get me some squishies? Can you say hi to Uncle Mark? You know? So my kids are part of my work. I sit down and go, hey, what do you guys think about this? You know, there was something that we needed to edit really quick, and it would take me 5 minutes. It took my 16-year-old an hour and a half. But it wasn't about efficiency, because we want to be so efficient. Like, watch children play. They're not efficient, but they're learning. And so I try to get them to be part of that. I look at my schedule, and we base trips based upon dream boards. We really just try to. So for me, it's like, hey, we did one. This is probably one of the best ways to sum it. One of the things that I did with my family is I created a family crest, but like just the outline. And I said, hey, because we kind of every Sunday night we work on dream boards, and I feel like that starts my week. And if our week starts off good on Sunday night, like that's how the whole week goes. And I think that's how a lot of families, whether you know it or not, how your Sunday night goes is how your week will go. And so what we do is I made this empty crest, and I say, hey, let's make let's draw what we want in it. So my wife's an artist, so it's like she just knocked it out really fast, and it was amazing. It took 5 minutes, and I was like, okay, great. It doesn't have a USB port attached to it, so mine's going to be horrible. And I'm trying to draw mine, and Logan's drawing his and embedding binary code around the edges. So I'm like, what is that? He goes, oh, you got to figure it out. It's a code. And I'm like, you know, it's like all their personalities come out. And I go to my daughter, and hers is this orange dragon. And so I'm kind of like, it's just a shield, this empty outline of a shield. And she has this big orange dragon in it. And I'm like, because she really loves orange. So I was like, why is it a dragon? And she said, because we fight dragons for people. And it was like, oh, like my heart melted. Like I'm tearing up thinking about it just now. Is, you know, I've integrated into my life that we're going to go fight dragons for people. And if I'm going to go fight, if I'm not here with you, it's because I'm fighting dragons. But when you're at school, you fight dragons for people. And so I'm like, oh, I want to get an orange dragon tattoo. You know, like it's good. I want to.
That's awesome.
And the best thing that we can do for the world, like, you know, we'll have a nursery rotation and we'll go to work days. But I don't think that sums up our service in our 30 minutes here or there. But you know, the best thing I think we do for people is fight dragons, help them win, invite them into this adventure. Because what you do really does matter. And so I don't try to balance my life anymore. My life is very out of balance. And it's wonderful because today, like, it's almost 10 o'clock. And I'm in a parking lot about to get tased by security because I want to help you win. I want you to win the week. I want to help you. I care that you can win, and it's really up to you to make that win. And but you know, tomorrow and the next couple of days, it's going to be unbalanced the other way. Well, some people have to do this and this at work. I'm going to be unbalanced the other way. All I know is that when you want to get something done, you know, when you look at motion and you look at inertia and just something static, if you look up the definition of getting that to move with momentum, it says it requires an unbalanced force to start that moving. So when you want balance, I feel like I associate balance equals mediocrity. Like it's status quo. Like I want everything to be the same. And you know what? The fact is if you think it's in balance, that's just a mindset illusion. Because if you could look at the bigger world, it's not in balance. You don't know what's about to rock your world. You don't know any of that. So for me, I have to try to focus on integrating, and there's going to be moments where, you know, where it is the 19th of October and we have, 12 more days for you to earn a bonus that could change your family tree. Don't try to balance those next 12 days. Integrate those next, have some perspective. Know that, hey, that it should be a rally. And I think when you do that, that's like, what could one of the guys do to help? You know what? Like, do everything to support each other. because things got to get maybe out of balance for a little bit to make something happen. So, we have to somehow bring a little chaos to the mediocrity to make it happen. But we can't live at that. I can't live at that pace. I can't, while life is a marathon, there are going to be sprints where I got to push through, because by me pushing through and taking some territory and doing some of that, that helps my family. And my family understands that because I've integrated it, and that's not something that happened overnight. I've had to work through that. So if that was the thing I wanted to encourage, especially you guys, is, if there's something practical, I would say take some spontaneous adventures. Take your family on some spontaneous adventures. They don't have to be expensive. Number one, you'll probably shock your wife. You'll probably shock your girlfriend. Be spontaneous. You'll probably get a lot of likes and comments, which hacks the Facebook algorithm. But more importantly, so a lot of things when I even say like, oh, this hacks this and this hacks that, being thoughtful and doing those things, it just turns out that all the algorithms are trying to do is mimic human behavior. So if you just do those principles I talked about, there's also a lot of science of numbers behind it. But take those spontaneous adventures and stop. Like, I just want you to be released from this lie of balance. It just, I think it just makes people sad. I would never want to go on vacation with somebody who's balanced.
That's great.
They're very boring.
The theme of this call. Theme of the call: balance equals mediocrity. And I remember what you said on the stage at conference. You said nobody walks across the stage unless they first walk through the wilderness. So, like you said, pushing through. That's awesome, Brian.
And
you
have fail, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I like
you only really fail when you give up.
Oh, exactly, exactly. I like how you talked about, you don't really balance, you integrate, and it's amazing when when my wife first started the business, I wasn't really, rooting her on from the background. I wasn't really into it. I was working my business. I was traveling a lot. But once I did get on board, and once we started to integrate our family and get our kids involved in everything, like now we're pushing for a promotion for that triple diamond bonus. You ask our kids what we're doing right now, they'll tell you. Oh, we're going for the double good. We're going to get that $50,000 bonus. So they understand why mom and dad are working hard, why dad is on the phone at 10 o'clock at night, doing a conference call. And when you bring them on board and get them involved, it makes things run smoother, and you're able to experience everything. And like you said, your kids understand those times when things are chaotic. This next week, our kids are out for spring break. We've got, 12 days left until the end of the month, and we're going to be working hard. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be an adventure, and we're able to do it as a family. And to me, that's just up there with the value of the money that we can make.
John-Erik, I have to ask you this.
Okay.
This is kind of a comical question, but are you any closer to getting the pet elephant? That's what we were all
wondering. Yeah. Well, let me say, some people think like, oh, I just made up that story to like get that point. That's actually something that I've worked on and spent time on. And then like as I researched and I heard some different things, like, oh, okay, that because for me, even like I don't really ever have notes. I don't write things down because you can never read my handwriting, and I can't really read that well anyway. And so there's even things just kind of like come out on, like I'm on Limelight, and I was like, okay, I wasn't planning on talking about this, but I'll just talk about it, I guess. And so it just happened where I like tie those two things together. But like literally, I have researched it more than you probably would believe, and I do have an idea because you can actually like a lot of the zoos lease animals between each other. So one of my current theories is that I will set up a LLC corporation that puts a trust, kind of like the like Central Park. It's deeded under the condition it's not developed, or like the Smithsonian, like as long as you don't charge admission. that will donate this elephant, as long as it's very clear that it's my elephant and I can visit it any time that I want. Like I'll give you the elephant and I will pay the cost, and everybody can enjoy this elephant. But let's be very clear. Anytime I want to come see my elephant, this is my elephant that you're borrowing. So that's my current theory that I'm working through. There's still some paperwork, and sometimes when I meet with lawyers and stuff, they're like, "What are we being pranked right now?" I'm like, "No, seriously. How would I transfer like of a pachyderm to a?" Yeah, but it's fun.
That's definitely an adventure.
I feel like I am a little closer though, so it'd be cool though. I will let you guys come visit my elephant if I ever work it out.
All right. As long as it's here in Orlando, we're good.
When I work it out. Exactly.
When you work it out.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to get together for lunch because I hear you're in Orlando, and so are we. So we might have an elephant party or something.
For sure.
For sure.
All right.
Well, thank you guys for inviting me.
Erik, that you want to? Oh, thank you for coming on, man. I greatly appreciate you taking your time out. And
I would say just one more thing before I go, and that is I would say this: your adventure begins right now.
All right. Let's go out with that. Thanks, John-Erik. We really appreciate it. Have a good night.
We'll talk to you soon, John.
Good night.
All right, Matt.
That was awesome.
So there, Matt. That was such a great
I'm
call.
here.
Thank everybody for sticking through with us. That's definitely a little bit longer than we typically go, but with John-Erik, we knew that we wanted to get as much information out of him as we can.
Yep.
What I took out a lot of from the call is I like the last thing that you talked about the balance and integrate. When you integrate your family into your business and into your plans, and you try to become that full-time family, that's the way we were intended to be. And, that's where your adventure really starts, is when you can integrate your family and kids into everything. And, you push through the hard times and the busy times, and then you're able to enjoy, the fruits of your labor that much more. It's not a 9-to-5 job with what we do. You're going to have times where you're talking on the phone at, 2 a.m. with somebody in California that's on your team. And, your family's got to be able to understand that that's what you need to do. And to the guys listening in, if your wife is on the phone at 2 a.m. or, during the day when you're trying to get her attention, there's going to be times where she's busy talking with them, the team and stuff like that. You just got to be understanding and try to set aside some time that y'all can have for yourselves. But we're going to do now what others won't, so we can enjoy life like others, can't later on. So that was one of my biggest takeaways from it.
Yeah.
And
balance.
You can get paid for what you do versus who you are.
Right.
That was another big thing that I liked what he talked about.
Yep, absolutely.
What did you take away from the call?
Well, obviously, I think balance equals mediocrity. And the difference between ordeal and adventure is attitude and mindset. So, I remember Mark Pentecost said, the leaders, I forget it was maybe at a boot camp or a green carpet, he said that you have to be a little bit crazy to do what we do here. And, John-Erik has kind of broke the mold here a little bit and shown us just a little bit different way to make relationships, real relationships, instead of trying to be strategic and selling people. So that's more or less what I took away from it. It was an awesome call. It was a fun call, like always. So, Brian, we have an amazing call next month. We're not going to give it away, but it's going to be over the top.
We're trying to build our adventure as we go. It'll definitely be a very good call. Real quick, I just want to thank everybody for listening into the call. Thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already, we have our Facebook page that the event is through. If y'all want to go like the page, you can stay up to date with all of our calls. We also post the recording to all of our calls on the page. And we look forward to talking to you next month on our next Power Call.
Sounds
As
great.
Always, Matt, it was a pleasure. You want to
go out with a boom, Brian, like always.
Let's go out with a boom or bring it.
Let's go out with
bring it this time. All right, ready?
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, bring it. Good night.
Good night.